$175 million. That is what JPMorgan Chase paid for a company in 2021. 2 months later, they sent marketing emails to that company's customers. 70% bounced back immediately because the customers did not exist. 3.8 million of them were completely made up by a 28-year-old woman with a Forbes badge, a Wharton degree, and the confidence of someone who has never once in her life considered the possibility that she might get caught. Her name is Charlie Javice, and this is the story of how she built an army of Go students, sold them to the biggest bank in America, pocketed $45 million personally, got prosecuted for it, and then made that same bank pay $100 million for her defense lawyers. I genuinely could not make this up. And trust me, neither could she. She tried. That was the whole problem. Let's go back to 2017. Charlie Javice graduates from Wharton, one of the most elite business schools on the planet. Her father runs a hedge fund. She grew up knowing exactly how money works, how prestige opens doors, and how the right story told to the right people in the right room can be worth more than the actual product ever could. She launches a startup called Frank. The pitch is clean. Frank would help college students fill out FAFSA, the government's financial aid application. If you've ever tried to fill out a FAFSA, you already know it was designed by someone with a personal grudge against the concept of higher education. Charlie was going to fix that. Noble, relatable, fundable. The press adored her. Young woman, Wharton brain, social mission. Silicon Valley fell in love with the story before anyone bothered to look too closely at the actual numbers. In 2019, Forbes put her on their 30 under 30 list. Here is the part Forbes left out. In the same year she launched Frank, the Department of Education had already flagged her. Her original website URL was designed to look like a government page. Students were landing on it thinking it was official. It was not. She settled quietly in 2018 and changed the address. That was sign number 1. Nobody noticed. Nobody wrote about it. The Forbes profile came out anyway. Funny how that works. By 2021, Frank had real users. Around 300,000 students who had genuinely used the platform. For a startup, that is a real number. That is a foundation to build on. But Charlie was not interested in building. She was interested in selling. And 300,000 customers does not get you $175 million. So she made a decision that every corporate fraud story eventually arrives at. She decided the numbers needed to be bigger. Not through growth, not through marketing, not through product development. She was just going to lie about it directly to the most powerful bank in the United States. While looking them straight in the eye, when JPMorgan Chase came to negotiate in 2021, Charlie Javice told them Frank had 4.25 million customers, not 300,000. 4.25 million. She inflated the number by more than 14 times and delivered it without flinching across a boardroom table from Jamie Dimon's team, the same Jamie Dimon who runs the largest bank in America and has spent decades being one of the sharpest financial minds on the planet. He did not catch it. JPMorgan asked for verification. They wanted to see the actual customer data before writing a check for $175 million. Charlie went to Frank's head of engineering and asked him to generate fake synthetic profiles, fake students to pad the customer list. He said no. He told her directly he would not participate in anything illegal. So she promoted him to the role of person who no longer needed to be involved and went and found someone else. She paid a college data science professor $18,000 to fabricate an initial fake student list. When the number still needed to be larger, she hired an outside data scientist for $105,000 to build a complete synthetic data set, 4.2 million fake student profiles, each with a name, an address, a complete digital profile, all of it generated and none of it real. She then bought actual names from commercial data brokers and blended them into the fake list to make it harder to detect. She built an entire fake population, millions of people who did not exist, packaged them as customers, and sold them to JPMorgan Chase for $175 million. The deal closed in September 2021. Charlie walked away with $45 million personally. JPMorgan appointed her managing director and put her in charge of their student-focused products division. The woman who had just stolen from them was now on the payroll. JPMorgan immediately launched marketing campaigns targeting Frank's supposed 4.25 million customers. They sent out 400,000 emails. 70% bounced back immediately. The email addresses did not exist. The names did not exist. The students did not exist. Out of 400,000 emails sent by the largest bank in the United States, they opened exactly 10 new accounts. My spam folder has a better conversion rate than that. A senior bank executive testified at trial that in his entire career, he had never seen anything like it. JPMorgan's internal legal team described what they found when they started investigating as, and I want you to hear this exact word, a crime scene. December 2022, JPMorgan sues Charlie Javice for fraud. And here's where the story takes a turn that no Hollywood writer would dare put in a script because no studio executive would believe it was realistic. Charlie Javice sued JPMorgan Chase right back. The woman who had defrauded the bank sued the bank and won. Buried inside the 2021 acquisition agreement was a standard Delaware corporate law clause requiring JPMorgan to advance Charlie's legal fees while any litigation was ongoing. Because the acquisition had technically made her a JPMorgan employee, the Delaware Chancery Court upheld it. JPMorgan Chase, the institution she had taken $175 million from, was now legally obligated to pay for her criminal defense. Her legal fees eventually exceeded $100 million. The bank paid $175 million for ghost students, then paid $100 million more to fund the lawyers trying to keep the woman who sold them those ghost students out of prison. In April 2023, federal prosecutors in Manhattan charged her on 4 counts: wire fraud, securities fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy. She was released on a $2 million bond, surrendered her passports, and was ordered to stay in New York City and Southern Florida. She immediately started teaching Pilates. Her lawyer filed a motion arguing she should not have to wear an ankle monitoring bracelet because it would physically interfere with her ability to teach Pilates classes. The ankle bracelet, that was the problem, not the fraud. The trial ran for 5 weeks in Manhattan federal court in early 2025. Her co-defendant was Olivier Amar, Frank's chief growth officer, who prosecutors said had also participated in sourcing the fabricated student data. Lead prosecutor Rushmi Bhaskaran stood before the jury and said it was through their lies that they became multimillionaires. The prosecution walked the jury through everything. Every email, every text message, the testimony of the engineering lead who had refused to fabricate data, the $105,000 payment to the data scientist who did not refuse. The paper trail was not circumstantial. It was complete. Airtight. Charlie's defense was led by Jose Baez, the same attorney who secured Casey Anthony's acquittal. He argued JPMorgan had performed its own due diligence, already knew the real numbers, and was experiencing buyer's remorse. He called the prosecution's case incredibly flawed. Throughout the closing arguments, Charlie Javice sat at the defense table and smiled at the jury. On March 28, 2025, after just 6 hours of deliberation, the jury came back guilty on all 4 counts. Javice sat completely still as the verdict was read. No reaction, no emotion. September 29, 2025, Judge Alvin Hellerstein sentenced Charlie Javice to 85 months in federal prison, 7 years and 1 month. She was ordered to pay $287.5 million in restitution jointly with Amar and to forfeit $22 million in personal compensation tied to the acquisition. At sentencing, she stood before the judge and said, "I accept the jury's verdict and take full responsibility for my actions." That was very big of her to say. 4 years after the emails bounced, in March 2020, 6 weeks before this video, a federal appeals judge rejected her attempt to overturn the conviction. The court dismissed it. JPMorgan is still in litigation. They are pursuing civil claims against Frank's early investors, including a trust connected to Apollo Global Management CEO Mark Rowan, who had personally invested in the company. The ripple effects of this fraud are still expanding 2 years after the verdict. Jamie Dimon, the man who runs the largest bank in the world, publicly called the acquisition of Frank a huge mistake. Not a fraud, not a crime committed against his institution, a mistake. That word should bother you. Charlie Javice did not exploit a software vulnerability. She did not run a sophisticated technical scheme. She walked into a room, said a very large number, and the people in that room who are paid enormous sums of money specifically to not be fooled by things like this believed her without checking because she had the right school on her resume, the right last name, the right energy in the room. The package looked exactly like what it was supposed to be. So nobody opened it. 300,000 real students used Frank. real people, real financial pressure, real need, and the platform that claimed to exist to help them was being used as a prop in a fraud, while its founder accepted speaking invitations and posed for Forbes. Forbes put her on 30 Under 30 in 2019. 4 years later, they added her to their published Hall of Shame, a list of pics they officially wish they could take back. I wonder how many others on that list they have not gotten around to yet. If this story made you want to say something, say it in the comments. The people who built the system that let this happen are counting on you not paying attention. I am Lana. This is Lana X Report. The truth always leaks.